In this short talk, I'm going to share our recent work on appeals of content moderation decisions. When users experience content moderation, platforms increasingly allow them to appeal the decision. However, recent work on users who self-reported experiences with content moderation found that they describe it as speaking into a void. In our work, we go beyond self-report data to experimentally test whether different forms of appeals can improve users' experiences. Our Between Subjects design uses a scenario where participants' Facebook accounts have been suspended for spreading misinformation. The experimental conditions vary whether and how they can appeal that decision. The intervention tested 4 versions of appeals: a no appeal baseline, a written appeal evaluated by a person, very similar to systems that exist now, a written appeal evaluated by an algorithm, and finally, a behavioral appeal inspired by prior work that tries to let users show rather than tell that they're a good user through their behavior. After seeing the scenario, participants who are allowed to appeal write their appeal, but then all participants are told that their appeal failed and their account was incorrectly suspended. We did this to ensure that it was not just outcome favorability that improved perceptions, but actually accessing procedural control or voice. All participants then answered survey questions about fairness, accountability, trustworthiness, and feelings of control, as well as open-ended questions about their perceptions of the decision-making. Participants for the online experiment were recruited from Qualtrics to be representative of the US population in terms of age, gender, education, race, and household income. After cleaning, we analyzed data from 449 participants, 182 for the quantitative, and an additional 267 for the qualitative results. So I'll start with the quantitative results for our first research question: how does adding appeals change users' perceptions of the fairness, accountability, trustworthiness, and their feelings of control in an algorithmic decision-making system? We find that despite the existence of this mechanism for control, users do not find the existing appeal process fair, trustworthy, or accountable, nor the variations that we developed to try to improve it. And while none of the differences are statistically significant, it was in fact the no appeal condition that users thought to be the most trustworthy, accountable, and so on. So what this indicates is that the current appeal process falls short of addressing users' needs. To answer our second research question, what do users choose to contest, we analyze the text that users write in their appeals and the open-ended questions. We find that users disagree with many parts of automated content moderation, from the fundamental idea to how it's performed to the automation of the process. For example, one participant argued that automation can't adapt to different circumstances, saying, "Facebook banned me for this very thing, because they said the money in the board game I was trying to sell was counterfeit. It was monopoly money. It's not supposed to be real money." Other common themes that emerged argued with the opacity and the inconsistency of the process, asking for explanations and examples and comparisons for how others are treated, saying, "It is inconsistent, arbitrary, and never ever explained properly or understandably to the user. They do what they want when they want." And people took these accusations very seriously. For many, 45 participants, or just over 10%, they wanted to provide context not just about the post itself, but also about themselves. This often led participants to make virtue ethics style arguments that they're not the kind of person who shares misinformation, saying, "I've never knowingly misled anyone in any way," or "I'm honest and not the type of person who would do this at all." And unfortunately for some users, they say this would lead them to leave the system, in part because they don't think they have control over the decisions, saying, "I would get off Facebook because it's harder to prove it's not true than it is to not try to fight it. And at the end of the day, Facebook does what it wants." We offer a number of suggestions for improving the design of appeal systems for content moderation, like scaffolding the appeal and unburdening the user. but argue that fundamentally, a framing focused on punishment eliminates the potential for content moderation to serve educational functions, and, in the tradition of human-computer interaction, to allow users and the system to recover from error.